Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio in partnership with E360 TV. My name is Caroline HEWARD and I'm your host today. Our show today is a woman's prerogative, and today's topic is books we are reading and can recommend. I am joined today by our panel, who is MARISKA from New Zealand, and I'm also joined by a special guest this evening, Dr. Annette Greenwood, and she's actually going to be talking about some of her books that she's written. So let's bring them all out and let's get into the show. Hello Caroline. Hello. Hello. Welcome. I'd like to start with our special guest, Dr. Annette Greenwood, and I'd love you to share with our viewers who you are and what you do. But first, before I do that, I'm going to introduce you. I'm going to tell people what you've been doing. So Dr. Greenwood is an award-winning coach. She is a radio presenter and an author. She has written books. She has written Imprisoned Heart, and it's on Amazon. You can buy it on Amazon. And she's also in a current collaboration, and the book is Essential Soft Skills for Leadership Skills with Grace. Annette shares her expertise on Expert Channel TV. She also is a Hollywood Digest and a Brilliance TV show. So please, Dr. Greenwood, tell us more about who you are and what you do and how you help people, and a little bit about what makes you so special that you're on all these shows.
Well, I don't know what else to say now, Caroline, because you said everything all in one sentence. So thank you for such a lovely warm welcome. It's my great joy and pleasure to be here. So following on from what you've said, I've done so many things in quite a short space of time. So yes, I'm a life coach, and I coach women predominantly who want to bounce back from life setbacks and challenges, shall we say. So that could be relationship, it could be career, it could be in the menopause, it could be somebody who's had an affair. I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of all that, but things like that where you've had a major life change or a major setback and you're not quite sure which way to go. So I support women to do that, as well as my radio show, Dr. Annette Talks. So we do this kind of thing, but it's one-to-one, talking about health and well-being, mental health, menopause, there's nothing off the table. Everything's open. It's a really good kind of get into the nitty-gritty of things. Writing, yes, I've written 2 books, Imprisoned Heart, and as you said, the Essential Soft Skills for Leadership. I've written 2 chapters in that. I've also written articles for magazines, little short stories. So I've done a host of things. I've done a massive amount of voluntary work, and I've done a lot of things that come from my heart. In fact, everything I do now comes from my heart, including working with women in prison, women in probation services, men on probation, men in probation services. So I feel like I've got this massive now whole bag of experience, and I'm just loving being able to share it with the world, really, Did I miss anything out? Was there something else you asked me that I
Wow, that's a lot.
It's a lot.
That is a lot. Thank you so much, Dr. Greenwood. That's absolutely incredible. And there is more opportunity to share a little bit more about your books later on as we look at our topic today. So I would like to ask Maria de Pree from New Zealand, all the way from New Zealand, to talk about a little bit about what's new for her, what's actually happening, and how you actually help people.
What's new for me? Oh, Caroline, that is a big question. Except for the fact that it's a new year, what else is new in my immediate environment or vicinity? I have some training that I'm very excited that's coming up, more around coaching and within the leadership space. And then, of course, me being a bit of a bookworm, I have read a whole bunch of books over my Christmas break period. I had somebody ask me the other day, so what did you do for New Year's? And I was busy reading a book with the intention that when New Year's get a little bit closer, we can do the whole celebrating thing and then continue reading. I only noticed that we were in the new year about half an hour after it became 2024, and I was reading throughout. So I read myself into 2024, literally. So yes, love books. What can I say? So that's stuff that's new for me, and one of the things that I am diving into a little bit more is neuroscience and how it works within the leadership space, which then answers the question around what it is that I do. I work with leaders. So whether you are going into leadership, so you are a new leader, or you are moving up in your leadership journey, that's the two spaces where I help. And I am now also getting a little bit more of the science because I know my engineers love science. And it just makes so much more sense for them if we have some backing to what we are doing and not just the doing of it. And that's where the neuroscience comes in. So I'm really enjoying that piece of things at the moment as well.
Thank you, Mariska. And for myself, I'm known as the Harley Street Stress Expert, and I help people bust their stress. Literally bust their stress. I work with root cause therapy using chakra psychology and literally obliterate the repeating patterns that create the physical, emotional, mental pain. So if you're going around saying, I'm not stressed, but actually you're complaining about that relationship or that person that's driving you mad, and whatever it is that you're actually focused on in terms of what you're complaining about is really the issue in terms of undealt with stuff that's causing your stress. Some people say they can't sleep, but they're not stressed. And it's the sleep, it's the symptom that is actually causing the stress. So it's manifested in lack of sleep. And I help people identify the root cause, and I do that through a very simple process and literally break through to root cause, and that obliterates the repeating pattern of it reoccurring, because once you're in awareness, you can't be unaware, and that changes everything. I'm actually, what's new for me, I'm in a new collaboration with a nurse, and it's taking up quite a bit of my time in terms of creating an online course. And we're actually going to do some filming on Friday this week. So it's absolutely brand new. We've got a studio booked, and we've also got a wonderful guy that's videoing who I've been working with for many years when I first started speaking. And it's all coming together, but it's actually created quite a bit of work behind the scenes before we actually launch. So that's very exciting for me. And it's also taking quite a bit of my attention in terms of getting all the bits together. So that will be launched. I'm not quite sure when, but we have quite a bit to do and to get sorted. So that's really exciting for me. So let's get into the topic. So our topic today is books we are reading and can recommend. Well, I'd like to start really with Dr. Annette Greenwood, because you have some wonderful books that you have authored and I'm sure will be recommending. So let's start with and also other books that you have. So let's look at your first 2 books that you would recommend and give insights to those books to our viewers here today.
Okay, so I'll start with the oldest last. Thank you, Caroline. And that book is called Imprisoned Heart. And that book is it's a journey of self-discovery and triumph over adversity about a woman who is wrongly accused and goes to prison for a crime she did not commit. She has fallen in love with the wrong man. She's gone down the wrong path and he's set her up. So she's ended up behind prison bars for 12 months. Within that 12-month period, she will go into the depths of her soul, really, Caroline. She'll go into those depths of the soul. There's a therapist within the prison system who helps her to get to know herself better and understand herself and face her demons and fight her demons. All the while, she has a love in her heart, not for herself, but for a man who she thinks doesn't love her. So she's very much a woman who has no self-esteem, no self-confidence. Her life as a prostitute has made her where she switches off to any emotions. So her whole approach to life is very robotic until she goes into the prison system, where within there's corruption, there's there's violence. So it's not sort of top level violence, but there are things there that people might find a little bit uncomfortable. But also there's a softer side to it where there's love, there's breakthrough, there is a happy ever after. So it's a very challenging book. But what I have found is that women who feed back to me about it have said at certain parts in the book, when they've been going through a difficult period, something has jumped out at them and said, this is the chapter for you to read. And they've read it and it's kind of aligned with them, if that makes sense, whether that's a little bit of divine order or something, but definitely it seems to speak to people at the right time. So that's the first one. The second one is the essential soft skills. It's a mouthful, that, isn't it? For leadership, steps to leading with grace. And I've written 2 chapters for that. And that's very early stages. That's actually coming out in March. So the 2 chapters I've written are, the first one is adaptability. I'm getting my teeth stuck tonight. Adaptability, the formula for life, which is very much about what it says on the tin, isn't it? We need to adapt to be able to go through life, whether we're in a leadership position or otherwise. And it's having those kind of soft skills that help us get through that and make the changes we need to make, whether it's somebody in self-employment or in a big organization. Adaptability is essential. Then the other one is communication. That's a very essential ingredient. And that is one of my big things about, I don't know if you ladies notice that there's so much miscommunication these days in organizations or businesses, and you never get the right information because you hear it here and then by the time it gets here, it's a completely different thing. So communication is, again, a really essential soft skill that seems to have been getting lost rather than getting found. So throughout the book, there's 22 authors, and each and every one of us have got a different perspective on those 2 things and other kind of soft skills as well. So that will be available, and I'm going to be able to start posting links shortly for that coming out in March. So essentially, those are the 2 that, obviously, because I'm a big fan of those. But other things, I've got bookshelves of stuff. And I mean stuff that I've collected that I still pick up. Women's wisdoms, women's bodies, about the menopause with Dr. Christiana Northrup. Ruby wax, Chinese medicine. So I collect like a whole plethora of different things that I'm attracted to. And I keep them and I pull them out and draw them out at the right time. You know, the law of attraction, things like that. So many different things. I don't have one set thing apart from the book has to be able to inspire me in some way. And that's kind of where I go with my books, or teach me something that will help me in my journey in life, really.
Oh, that's just so. I really resonate with that, Dr. Greenwood. I've actually got a lot of books, a ton of books. In fact, when I was selling my property in London, I had to take pictures and I had to remove a lot of stuff out of the office, and I just left what was on the bookshelves. And one of my neighbours turned around and said, "I had no idea how many books you had." And I actually transported all of them, because all of my books pretty much are reference type books. They're not particularly novels and storybooks, they're reference books. But before I get into that, I want to hear about the wonderful Mariska de Preez's books, because she's actually been talking about books that she's read all over the Christmas and New Year period. And I'm fascinated to hear, because I'm actually going to talk about some quite old books and some different types of books. So please, Mariska, do share what you've been up to and what you would recommend in terms of your reading over the Christmas holidays.
Caroline, I love the fact that you mentioned that you have a lot of reference books, because I have a tendency to collect those as well. I mean, it's always good for me, I have found, to have the reference books. And while I was still in school, basically, I had a very bad habit of starting to read a book, and it would be novels, right? So fantasy novels or science fiction novels. And typically what would happen is, if I had a book that I'm busy reading, everything else would disappear. So my mom knew not to ask me to make food for dinner or whatever it is that she needed doing while I'm reading, because I had burnt rice right under my nose. Literally, I was sitting next to the pot and it burned while I was reading. So I'm very good at reading and multitasking, or doing two things at the same time. Very bad for me. So what I did discover is I need to read novel type things in my off time, or when I don't need to study or do anything that's important, like making food, in order to not destroy anything in the process, because I really get into the book. So I do have novels, and that's some of the things that I've been reading over the holiday period. There's a novel called The Keepers of the Lost Cities. That's sort of similar to the Harry Potter series, in the sense that it's got fantasy and all sorts of interesting things that happens, and interesting creatures, and a whole world that is sort of on its own. Very interesting book. Not quite finished with that one yet, and the author still needs to write a few more. So we'll most probably do the rest of that reading the end of this year, hopefully. And then I also have a lot of reference books that I've been reading. As I mentioned, one of the things that I've been really interested in is the neuroscience. And there's a book called 7.5 Lessons of the Brain. Very short little book and very insightful. So I've been making all sorts of interesting connections between that and some of my other readings that I've been doing. Definitely the type of book that, if you are interested in how your brain works, how it develops, and how to get it to change, because yes, you can change your mind, your brain physically, it is possible. That would definitely be a book that I would recommend for understanding it a little bit more, because I have found that when I understand things a little bit more, it's easier to do. So that would be my main books at the moment. And Dr. Annette, I absolutely agree. When it draws me, I will read it. And yes, the variety is wide. So I have all sorts of books at home.
Well, Mariska, I so resonate with the stuff that you like to read on the mind. I have a lot of mind, brain type books because that really appeals to me, how the mind creates and how it creates our good stuff as well as our not so good stuff, as well as our stress and our physical, emotional ache and pain. So I'm very, very in tune with the fact that you like that kind of thing, because we can rewire our brain. And one of the things that made, when you were talking about the brain and the mind, is that I'm a big fan of Dr. Joe Dispenza. I'm actually a level 3 advanced graduate student of his from the first time he came to the UK back in 2007, when he wasn't as big as what he is today. And now you can't get anywhere near him. Now he has bodyguards around him. I used to be in a community where we had dinner together, and I landed up sitting next to Dr. Joe Dispenza, and we were talking the same language. I said, "You sound like me." and I didn't actually know how big he was. And that was before he had books, and that was before he had the YouTube stuff, because 2007 was still very light in that area. And now he's got so big that I can't get anywhere near him. But I highly recommend any of Dr. Joe Dispenza's books, because I'm a huge fan. And people that have only seen his work on YouTube and in books are missing out, because he's really good in that area, and he's super cool face to face and live, and really, really cool with what he does. His meditations are amazing. So that's a really big plug for one of my absolutely amazing trainers and mentors. I've been with him for a long time. In that same vein, I'd like to share a very old book, actually. I don't know whether this is going to come out right on the screen. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Or is it backwards?
No, it's right. It's the right way.
Great. Wonderful. So it's Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. It's a very, very old book. It's been out for a long, long time. And Louise Hay, she was actually 60 before she wrote her first book. So there's still time for me, because I'll be 60 this year. She actually has got a whole foundation, and she's developed all sorts of authors that have come under her wing. And Louise Hay is just like, she's gold dust. She's now sadly passed over. She wrote this book about healing your life, and in this was our go-to, our like sort of our Bible almost, and our go-to in terms of, what does this mean? What does that mean? It has like an A to Z at the back in terms of the symptoms and what they're related to, and in terms of what you're not handling. And this was, we were recommended that book when I first started back in my chakra work, way back in 2001, I think it was. So a long, long time ago. So a very old book. But she's written many other books since, and she really goes into the psychology and in a very easy way of why things are the way they are, our behaviors, our lifestyle, and our communication. And it's really where I sit in terms of the work that I do. So this has been on my shelf, and this is the book that I bought in that time, and it's still quite pristine, because I'm really kind of quite conscious about how I look after it. So Louise Hay is really, really high on my list of recommendations. I have two others, and one that you might not have seen, somebody else that I've done some work with in terms of training and mentoring, and it's called Open with a Close. And this is by Matt Elwell. Now, this guy is absolutely extraordinary guy. It's only a small book and quite an easy read, and it's very easy in terms of sort of its simplicity of read and what he's sharing. And essentially what we've got is we've got great people with great services that can't sell. And I feel that I come under that, sort of I've got a great service. I really genuinely help people, but I'm the therapist, the expert. And even though my background is marketing and PR, I find that I overly give. And then I don't get the sale, so to speak. The client doesn't kind of sign up. Well, Matt Elwell, he has this wonderful way of saying that it's a huge disservice when we overly give. it's a huge disservice because the person doesn't know how to get more of you. And if you're giving them too much, they become full and overfull. And so it's about giving them a little so they understand what you do, and then actually going into a relationship with them by serving them. So you serve them all the way through, rather than overly give and overly serve, that you serve them for what their needs are. And when you serve, that means that they feel more comfortable to come back and say, I need help with this. And then they feel more comfortable to come back when you suggest different packages. But they don't generally, when they first come and make that initial contact with you, that they want it all solved in that call. And because I have a lot of solutions and tools and things that I can just help them there and then, I tend to be a little bit overexcited, and I tend to just want to help people. And that was something that was mentioned when I was in my training over the weekend. One of the girls came up to me, because we'd had a whole weekend of exam and assessment, and one of the girls came up to me, she said, I can really see you love to help people. She says, everywhere you go, every connection, you help people. And she said, it's beautiful. And, you know, this was somebody that I hadn't actually connected with until the exam weekend. And I thought that was amazing, because I didn't even land up connecting with her because there's so many of us in that group training. And this was something that she observed, not what I told her or what she discussed with me. It's something that she observed. So definitely open with a close. It's actually selling gracefully without the feeling of that you're overselling, and you're serving them by making sure that you keep connecting with them and you have a relationship with them. You don't, you know, one of his lines is, you don't get married on the first date. You actually have a date, and then a second date and a third date. So don't expect a big sale on the first date. You don't meet somebody and get married to them. And I think that's a great, you know, a great insight. So one final book that I want to share, and that's of our wonderful Dr. Jacalyn. Dr. Jacalyn is our wonderful host and producer of the show, and this is a really, really, really easy read. There's exercises. It's really simple to process. There's quizzes. There's all sorts of incredibly simple information that changes the way that you see listening, the way that you hear listening, and the way that you behave in listening. And it even has a quiz at the beginning, a quiz at the end, just to see what your listening skills are like at the beginning and how it's improved at the end. And I just think that's amazing. And I'm a real fan of Dr. Jacalyn's courses and trainings, and I've been doing them not because I don't think I'm a good listener, actually more importantly, that I'm always open. I'm open to learn. And when I am open, I see and hear things in a different way. And so I've been the proverbial student for a long, long time. So I'd like to just get your feedback on some of the things that I've shared with you. So I'm going to go over to Dr. Annette Greenwood. What are your thoughts about the books that I've shared?
Well, I'm intrigued about the one about the selling, because I think quite commonly in coaching, people overgive. And when we first, when you first finish your training and things like that, you're overgiving. And some of my mentors, so John Assaraf was one of my mentors, and I've got other mentors now who always talk about, it's not marketing if you're doing what you love. You are sharing what you love, and you're doing people a disservice if you're not happy to, if you don't want to do that. It's about sharing with love. So there's that side of it. And Dr. Joe, I did again the teeth tonight. Dr. Joe Dispenza. Now, I've only just got into his work from one of my friends who lives in the States, and she was telling me about a healing example, a meditation that he'd done, because she was having to have a hip operation, and she was working on herself with his meditations and how powerful it was. I mean, she had the hip operation and she's recovered really quickly, but also talking about epigenetics, I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And quantum field and things like that, which I'm not as into it. I don't know enough about it, but I'm fascinated by it and fascinated about how in epigenetics. So, for example, in my family, I've got a family member very close who has a heart condition, and they've said it's hereditary or potentially hereditary. So I've been kind of going down that road of, well, my lifestyle's different and I do this and I think differently, I think that. No, I didn't know this was epigenetics until I listened to one of his videos on YouTube. So I was quite fascinated by, I'd been doing something intuitively without actually knowing about it. So I'd love to know more about that from you anyway, Caroline, about Dr. Joe Dispenza. And what was the third one again? Oh, it was Jacalyn, Dr. Jacalyn.
This is our wonderful, wonderful Dr. Jacalyn.
And that'll teach me to listen. So yeah, and again, that thing about listening, isn't it? And the fact that you do a quiz at the beginning and at the end to test out your listening skills, and communication. It sort of goes back to what I was talking about before. But listening is so important, super important, isn't it? Because
Absolutely.
we can hear something different to what somebody's saying, and that happens all the time in relationships. That's a point this way. I say something, my husband hears something different, and it happens all the time, and that causes conflict, doesn't it? Well, it does for me. Maybe it doesn't for you other ladies, but it certainly does for me, because I'm frowning going, he's not listening. He's definitely not listening. Oh yes, I am though, but he's not. And so it's quite interesting, isn't it, how these books can teach us so much.
Well, that's exactly the work that we do and the work that Dr. Jacalyn does. Are they listening? Because you've just cited an example that you know that your husband's not listening, that he's telling you he's listening, but you know, and this is the innateness of our communication, that there's a huge percentage that is non-verbal. It's not what we say, it's actually how we respond, from our gestures, from our physiology. We can actually be saying, yes, I'm really interested in that. And so the words are yes, but the physiology is no. And if you're in that communication and you see that the communication physically is saying no, but the verbal is saying yes, it's totally different. You can actually hear somebody smile. You know, when they're on a telephone call, you hear a smile and you hear a frown. You know when somebody is frowning. I find it fascinating, but that's my thing. You know, I'm very interested, and that's very much my thing about the communication, the behavioral traits, because we can't not be who we really are and how we're really thinking and feeling. We've learnt to say, but we've not learnt to change our physiology and our physical gesturing, so our body doesn't lie. So what are your thoughts, Mariska? Do you have any comments to make on any of the shares that we've had tonight in terms of the books?
Well, for the listening piece of things, I also know that Dr. Jacalyn, with you, Caroline, and me, some input, has children's books. That's also about listening. So if you're not into grown-up books about listening, you can always do the children's books about listening. They still have the same lessons with a little bit more flair to them, and sometimes a song to go along with it. And it also reminds me of a book by Nancy Klein. So the book, I do have it with me, The Promise That Changes Everything. And it's more around the thinking when we give space to listen. We really listen to another human being. Their thinking can come out and they can truly think for themselves. So there's so much value in being able to listen. And Dr. Annette, to your point on communication and feeling or seeing that others might not be listening as well as they think they are listening. Yes, it's it is both the intention of the speaker and the person hearing the sounds that needs to work together. And we can all benefit from better listening and communication skills. With Dr. Joe Dispenza, thank you, Caroline, for reminding me about him. I've got 3 of his books on my bookshelves, which I have read quite a while back, and I will definitely, with your prompt, go back to them.
He's super cool. I do love Dr.
Yes.
Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's really super cool with what he does. And he's just like, he's on rocket fuel at the moment because he's got scientists doing his work, you know, proving how the meditations are working. You know, he's really, and he got quite a male following rather than just women. He's got a lot of men following in his teaching because he's proven a lot of things with the science. He's got a huge UK following because they like the science, our UK lot. And so that was one of the things that he did. And he's got, you know, sort of people that are scientists checking blood, checking brainwaves, checking all sorts of things, you know, which is just amazing in terms of his courses. What I want to do is because we're sort of almost in our last throes of the show, and I just want a sort of a quick fire of a non-fiction book, a fiction book, because I've just thought of one that came to mind that I couldn't put down. It was a long time ago, but I couldn't put it down. So I'd love to have your thoughts on a book that you've read that's a novel or a fiction book that you couldn't put down. I'll share mine. Mine is Midnight Express. It's a book. Have either of you heard of this book or film? It was a fascinating book, and when I picked it up, I wasn't expecting to not put it down. As I said, it's quite an old book, and I can't remember when it came out, but it was a long time ago. And this book is about a man that decides to buy some cannabis, and he's in Turkey, and he gets caught, and he gets imprisoned. And it's his journey of how he survives his prison experience and his journey of the mind, essentially, and going crazy, and how he manages to escape the torture and trauma of the prison, which is very, very terrible conditions, how he survives and how he actually becomes free. But it's really a story, not really of what he did, but actually of his survival and how he used his mind and escaped the prison before he actually physically escaped, and how he looked after himself, and how before he looked after himself, how low he went and how he nearly killed himself. And so it's a story of survival, but more than that, he really goes into detail about all the different characters. And because it's a true story, you know, it intrigued me, and I kept turning over the page. I thought, I'll just put this down, and then I finished the page and I couldn't put it down, and then I picked it up, turned the page again. So please do share if there's any book like that you have experienced that you've not been able to put down. I'll first go over to Dr. Greenwood.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, and it came to mind while you were talking, and you may or may not have heard of it, is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Yeah. I read that book way back in the 80s, and I just didn't get it at the time. I was kind of going on this journey, and I was reading this book about this young boy who goes to Santiago, and he's searching for his dream, and he finds it right in front of his face at the end. And I thought, oh, I don't get this. I just don't get it. And then a few years later, when I was a bit more aware, I read it again, then I read it again. And each time I read it and you go deeper into it, you can see yourself in this journey, can't you, where we're searching for something, and we're searching in lands far and wide, and looking under every bush and every place where it isn't. And actually it's right there within us, and it teaches us to follow our hearts, doesn't it? The whisper of our hearts. So for me, it's a beautiful book. It's a beautiful journey. And it is about the wisdom of our own hearts if we just choose and learn to listen to it. It's quite magical.
I love that book. I love the author too. So yes, I'm totally. There's so many books, isn't there? Let's move over to Mariska. Have you got one of those books that you couldn't put down and you kept turning the page to keep reading?
Well, it's not one book, it's a series, and it's the Clan of the Cave Bear series. So I don't know if you guys know about said book.
No.
It basically plays off long ago when we sort of started off as humans and still had woolly mammoths and all the other interesting animals around. So it's a journey of a young woman where she lost her family initially, and then as she grew up in different environments, different cultures, as she gets to different tribes within the country where she travels. So, and of course, all the intrigues that goes with that, a little bit of love stories and a little bit of adventure in between. So it's really a book that is, it covers all bases. Well, books that covers all bases because there's more than one. And I really enjoyed it. It's one of those where the author, what I appreciate about the author is once you start reading, Caroline, as you mentioned, you go to, okay, I'll just finish this chapter, and then you start with the next one. And of course, it captures you, and you just want to finish this chapter again. And that's the way that you burn rice. So, yes.
Thank you. Well, we are at the end of our show, and before we leave and move over to our sponsors, I'd like each of you to share how people can reach you and one thing that you can give to them. One thing, what parting message would you like to give to our viewers that are here on the live and also on the replay? And we'll start with our wonderful guest, our special guest, our author, Dr. Annette Greenwood.
Thank you so much for saying I'm a special guest. I feel truly blessed and honoured. So you can reach me at AnnetteGreenwood.com. I was going to give you another one then. So AnnetteGreenwood.com on email. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. And what I would give you is possibility. The possibility to change your life. The possibility to open up to something new, and the possibility to reach new heights that you never thought possible. Possibility. Just keep that in mind.
Thank you. Beautiful. I love it. And over to our wonderful Mariska Dupree.
Well, you can reach me on my email, which is mariska@journey2discover.com. And the thing that I would, or that I'm thinking that we sometimes forget is choice. We always have a choice. And as Dr. Greenwood mentioned, there's possibility. The thing is, we need to choose it. So remember that you have a choice and you can choose. Whenever anybody else makes you believe or leads you to believe that you don't have a choice, you do have a choice. And remember to make that choice.
Beautiful. Thank you. And for me, my details, you can contact me on nomorestress@live.co.uk, or you can reach out and call on +44 if you're international, 0 if you're local, 7523 120 189. Reach out if you need any help and if you want to bust your stress. I work with you wherever you are in the world. So it's either Zoom, Skype, or it can be on WhatsApp. So reach out and I'm here to help you. What I'm going to leave you with is acceptance. To accept who you really are, to live and feel in your total authenticity, not to be wearing the mask the mask of all your different identities, to accept you for being you, because when you do that, life is so much richer. Thank you very much, everybody. This has been an amazing show. Thank you so much to our very special guest, Dr. Annette Greenwood. It's been absolutely amazing to have you on the show and hear about your wonderful books. Thank you very much to our wonderful panelists, Mariska Dupree, and thank you to all of our viewers watching here on the live and here on the replay. And now it's over to our sponsors, and I look forward to seeing you next week at the same time and same channel. Bye-bye for now.
This program is brought to you in part by the British School of Excellence and founder, Mr. Philip Sykes. Building confidence, changing lives. Do you share our view that etiquette is a set of modern life skills that are essential for personal and professional success? Join us as an etiquette coach and change people's lives through the power of etiquette and manners.
The last few days have been really amazing. I had a trainer course from the British School of Etiquette.
And I must say it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made and one of the best investments I've made in my own training and development.
Now, words alone will not describe the transformation and the positive path that I have traveled with the British School of Etiquette.
I found I learned a lot from the lessons this time I came.
The last few days with the British School of Etiquette have been fantastic.
And what I've learned now is really beyond my expectations.
This is the most rewarding experience and the best investment I have made this year.
It was just great. I learned so much, and when I go back to Belgium I will incorporate a lot of it into my day-to-day life and business.
It's been absolutely wonderful for the whole week that we were here.
I feel transformed, and I feel like blowing a trumpet and tell people, come and do this school. This class is the best. This is the best school ever.
You should take it. It will change your life immediately.
I am now able to teach other people how to bring the best of them.
Thank you.
Thank you, PREEZ.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to our clients for their testimonials on the Train the Trainer program. Our exponential and global growth is so significant that we've evolved from the British School of Etiquette to the British School of Excellence, where we're investors in people. Let us invest in you and your career. Contact us to become an etiquette coach. Go to thebritishschoolofexcellence.com. Start your career and elevate your success today.
Meet Lady Ella, a special ladybug who is trained by Grand Beetle on how to listen at an elevated level. After earning her gold wings, Mother Earth and Father Universe asked her to travel across the solar system, teaching life lessons to creatures to respect one another and to listen. Learn more about her travels in the book series, The Amazing Adventures of Lady Ella. The Amazing Adventures of Lady Ella, the Listening Mentor. Lady Ella's ABCs of Listening. Lady Ella has afternoon tea in London. The ocean calls and Lady Ella listens. Lady Ella listens in the Baobab National Game Park. Lady Ella's space adventure across the universe. The magical adventures of Lady Ella and her super-powered friends. There are also collections of colouring books for parents and kids. Providing world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Join our team of elevated listeners to teach children elevated listening skills. Lady Ella would like to teach you and your family how to listen at an elevated level. If you're interested in learning life lessons as well as how to communicate more effectively as a family, go to Amazon and order Lady Ella's books. They're all there just waiting for you.
This program has been brought to you in part by Zane Carson Carruth, etiquette and protocol expert, international award-winning author, television show host, and philanthropist. Thank you to Zane, our official diamond sponsor for USA Global TV and Radio in partnership with E360 TV. Zane is the author of The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever, as well as many other children's books. She's also the television host of Elegance, Polished Demeanor, and Posh Living, seen on USA Global TV and Radio.
Hi, my name is Zane Carson Carruth, and I'm the author of this book, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever.
Reading is magic. Studies have shown that reading to your children lays the foundation for greater success in life. Reading helps develop language and vocabulary skills. It helps improve memory, and it encourages curiosity and inspires creativity. The benefits are immeasurable, and as a parent, you'll benefit too. In only 10 or 15 minutes a day, you'll be creating more memories and a bonding experience that will last for years to come. So take time to read to your children. Read them books about things that engage and interest them. Tales of fairies and magic fascinate children, and as everyone knows, the Tooth Fairy is at the top of the list. If your child loves magic, wands, adventure, and what child doesn't, you'll love reading them books from the trademarked series The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever. Follow along as Bella, the world's first tooth fairy, accidentally starts the tooth fairy tradition. Learn the tricks of being a professional tooth fairy in the book Bella Starts a Tooth Fairy School. Your child's imagination will soar as you read the adventures of Bella and her magic wand. These wonderful books are available at worldsfirsttoothfairy.com and at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart.
To learn more about Zane, contact her through her website, zanecarruth.com. ZANECARRUTH.com. Order Zane's books and merchandise. Contact her about being a keynote speaker at your next event.